Who's your emergency contact? Who should we notify in the case of death? Welcome to the USP, where I spent the last 2+ decades of my life. In a previous episode, I was giving you a lead up to this guy named Perry Roark. Like I emphasized before, I don't know anything about the organization other than what I've read and what I've seen on little clips, the History Channel, and some other YouTube videos of people doing or whatever. But my story is not about them or their organization. My story about the DMI, Dead Man Inc., and Perry Roark is about my personal encounter with this individual. He lives in my block, so through the course of the time, we got to know each other. You know, when we first met, there was kind of a little friction because our conversation wasn't about any topic that I've introduced or had invited him to. But he felt that his status and who he was, that I should already know who he is. You know, like I tell people all the time, in prison, no one gives a fuck who you are, no one cares about what you've done, and nobody cares about how much money you got. You know, the only thing that matters is how you conduct yourself while you're here. And through the course of the time that I got to know him, this dude that I call Roark, he conducted himself the way I expect a G to conduct himself. So after a little bit of him living in my block, I got to know him. And we started having different conversations about different topics. You know, we got to the point where I even used his phone, because he doesn't use his phone. But I don't know why he doesn't use his phone. So I've been getting written up for phone shots every week for the last 2 months. You know, because I'm on phone restriction, I'm on visiting restriction, but my wife wants me to call her every week, every day. So I'm gonna find me a phone to use and call. But I kept getting written up. So finally, I seen the SIS dude, his name is SIS Brown, that was in Atwater. I seen him on the yard, and me and a couple of my homeboys approached him. When I say me and a couple of my homeboys is, we also have a rule in the penitentiary. We never talk to the police officers, to the guards, to anybody, any administration by ourselves. We always bring somebody with us, and they act as a witness so they can hear the conversation that we're having, so they can hear that I'm not over here trying to tell on somebody or try to tell on something, that my conversation is kosher. Now, I built a reputation for myself that even if I didn't bring anybody with me to go talk to one of these staff members, no one's gonna look sideways at me. But perception is a lot. I understand the rules. And even though I know that there's no smear on my character, I'm never gonna deviate from protocol. So every time I talk to these staff, administration, CO, SIS, or whatever question I got to ask them, I always bring somebody with me so there's no misunderstanding, there's no room for assumptions or anything like that. So when I see SIS Brown on the yard, I bring a couple of my homeboys to go holler at him. And now, when I say a couple of homeboys, that doesn't necessarily mean it's an Asian Islander. It can be anybody that's respected on the yard. If I'm standing there and it's a white dude that I know, that his people know, there's somebody that's well respected, or a black individual, I'll say, hey, can you come stand right here with me while I holler at this person? And I do that all the time. It doesn't matter who's around me. I always want to make sure somebody's with me to be able to hear the conversation that I'm trying to have with these staff. So at this time, it's a Sereno. He was out there in the yard with me. I said, hey, can you come stand with me real quick? He's like, hey, so I asked Brown, I said, hey man, why you guys keep writing me up? I said, listen, I'm doing a 26-year bid. I have a wife at home. It's hard enough to have it's hard enough to have a healthy relationship being in prison, not being home. So if my wife wants to talk to me once a week, once a day, twice a day, whatever it is that she needs from me to help keep this relationship healthy, that's what I'm going to do. My wife wants me to call her, so I'm going to continue to call her. I say, you guys can keep writing me up if you want, but it's not going to stop me from calling my wife. I said, you guys listen to every phone call. You know, these phone calls, when you pick them up, they have a sign on the phone that says this phone call will be monitored. And me, I'm on the hot list, meaning they're always watching me because they feel like I have a part in the things that's going on in the compound, whether it's introduction of narcotics, whether it's organizing, gambling, whatever it is. They always go, I get my mail 3 to 4 weeks late. My email, which is supposed to only be 2 hours from the computer to somebody's phone, takes 7 days to get home. Like every piece of mail, everything that I do is scrutinized. They come in and kick in my door twice a month to try to catch me slipping. So I know I'm under surveillance. I know I'm being watched. And I've told them so. I said, I know you guys listen to my calls. You guys see that there's only one phone number on these phones, and that's my wife's phone number. And you guys listening to the call, so you know that I'm not talking about nothing. All I'm doing is asking how my wife is doing, and we're just having a conversation that any other normal couple would have. So SIS Brown tells me, he goes, yeah, I understand that. That's why you haven't been written up the last 2 weeks. You know, but I've instructed my staff not to write you up, but just to monitor your call. But really, Rith, you know, my last name is Rith, Mesa Rith. So they, you know, the administration always dressed me as Rith. He said, really, Rith, of all the people in the unit, of all the phone you could use, you're using Perry Roark's phone? I said, you can't find nobody else's phone? I said, what about him? I said, what, he's on the hot list? I said, man, we monitor his phone call when he picks it up to check his account, right? So after the conversation, Brown leaves, and I turn around and look at the Sereno dude that I was talking to, like, damn, who is this guy? Like, I know, I've heard of DMI, and I've heard that he's the founder, but I don't really know any intimate detail. So I go back and I see Roark walking on the walk coming back from the kitchen. He worked in the kitchen. So I go up to the fence. I say, hey, Roark. I say, what's up? He's like, what's up? I say, hey, man, how come you didn't tell me your phone was hot? He's like, oh, it's a little warm. I said, nah, it ain't a little warm, homie. They say they monitor your shit when you pick up and freaking check your account. He goes, yeah, it's a little warm. I said, nah, hell no. I said, he goes, well, why do you think I didn't use my phone? I said, motherfucker, if you can't use your phone, why the fuck would you want to sell it to me? And we just laughed it off or whatever, but I didn't use his phone anymore, you know? So like I said, this guy, he was in the state for 20-something years. And when he was leaving the state, the feds came in and indicted him on a RICO. And he's got, at least from what I've read, 5 unsolved murders that these people are missing that they're looking for. Now, there's another guy named Sweeney that it was his partner. And from what I get, these two individuals aren't seeing eye to eye. But they started trying to smear Roark about that he cooperated on the case. Now, I don't know any other member of DMI. I'm not here to get into their politics or anything like that. But me being the man that I am, and Perry Roark became a friend of mine, I'm not going to sit here and not necessarily set the record straight, but give you my impression, my perspective, my opinion, and my exact encounter with this individual. You know, the case, they said that he gave up 2 bodies. So some people in his organization or whatever have an issue with him giving up 2 bodies. But he didn't put them 2 bodies on somebody else. There's no one in the penitentiary system that is in there because of Roark. He gave up 2 bodies and took the 2 bodies, 2 life sentences that came with those 2 bodies, because he had a friend, a female friend that was caught up in the indictment with them. So he made a deal and offered to let them know where his 2 bodies were if they dropped the indictment off his friend. But he took the case. He didn't put that body on anybody else. He put the body on himself. So on this particular episode that I'm sharing with you, we've already discussed that there's 5 missing bodies, unsolved murders on this guy's case. Well, he was having a conversation with his vice lord. I guess they're from out by the same area, Midwest, towards Baltimore, D.C. area. But this vice lord dude, I forget his name, but he asked Roark, he said, look, because they both had life sentences. And he was telling Roark, he said, hey, look, man, why don't you let me know where a couple of those bodies are, and I'll call the feds and tell them that I know where a couple of bodies are, make a deal so that I can go home, and when I get home, I'll take care of you. Like, I don't know where this dude, this black dude, this vice lord dude, thought he could have that kind of conversation. Because, you know, really, if you read Perry Roark's case, there's missing people. And the feds are very interested in trying to find these missing individuals. So anyway, I don't need to tell you that those conversations are allowed and are not accepted. So Roark goes and tells his people, the vice lord or the Baltimore blacks and the DC. Those are the people, you know, the DC and the Baltimore dudes, blacks, are the people that Roark fucks with real tough in there. I mean, he was white, but he wasn't on that white power time. You know, he came from an area where they got along with blacks, and they have friends that are black. So he didn't come to the feds and switch up. He was who he was. And anyway, they end up putting a hit on the vice lord dude in front of my unit. We're coming out of chow, and I didn't see the beginning, but I saw this Puerto Rican dude out of New York that I fuck with real tough take off on the vice lord dude. But when I was taking off on him, the vice lord dude backs up and pulls out a knife. I thought it was a one-on-one thing. I didn't know the incident until after, or the reason why they were hitting him. I just knew that the vice lord dude lived in my block, and as far as I know, he was good. He was good people's. But then there was another black guy. I think there was like 2 dudes from New York. One of them was a vice lord, or 2 of them was a vice lord, and the other one was on like New York time. Because, you know, even though he was a vice lord, he was a Muslim too. He wore a lot of hats. So anyway, 3 people surrounded him, but you know, the other 3 people had like little short knife, and the vice lord dude had a machete. So wasn't a lot of action happening because the other 3 individuals didn't really just want to rush him because the guy's going with a freaking machete. But, you know, the COs came, they shot the gas grenade or whatever, detained him, secured the situation. Like that vice lord dude, he didn't get fucked up. You know, I think he maybe got stabbed a couple times with the initial incident before he pulled out his own knife. But I find out that, you know, Roark, that the reason that happened was because of Roark, because he approached Roark and asked Roark to let him know where 2 body was buried at, so that he could use it as a bargaining chip to get him out of the life sentence that he was serving. So, but like I said, this guy Roark, by every encounter, is a gangster, is a monster, is a dangerous individual. And to prove my point, we had a white dude named Bishop in our block. Him and Bishop were cellies. Now there's rumors going on that Bishop was playing both sides of the fence. He's out here hustling, doing whatever, but at the same time, he's talking to the police. Now, I don't know if he was really a jailhouse informant or not, but that was the rumor. So there had to be something that kept coming up for him to be the target or for him to be suspected. So one day I'm out in the yard. I'm out there and I'm running my poker table. They call the yard at 7:30. So this is about 9:30, 9 o'clock. They get on the intercom and they say, all inmates from 2A return to your cell. You know, I lived in 2A, Roark lived in 2A, but I don't know nothing. I don't know what's going on. Nobody on the compound knows what's going on. So at 9 o'clock, they called us back in to 2A and locked all of us in our cell. And we were locked down for the whole day. But through the course of the day, around after lunchtime, the SIS and other staff came and started pulling people out of their cell for interviews. You know, anytime an incident happens, when your unit gets locked down, they got to come and do their investigation. They come down, they ask everybody cell by cell, you know, they pull them into the back room. They have a count, they have a clock. No matter if you're telling or you're not telling or whatever, they keep you back there for 5 minutes so that people don't see, oh, this dude just went in and came right back out. So they know, oh, he didn't have enough time to say anything to the staff. Or if somebody goes back in there and they're back there for like 10, 15 minutes, and you know, well, he's not back there 10 or 15 minutes asking about somebody's kids or their family. So they have a time for everybody. I mean, if you're informing, they'll take you out of the unit and you might never see him again. But no matter if you're over there just to say, hey, man, I ain't got nothing to say to you, they still hold you back there for 5 minutes. So when it was my turn to go back there, you know, they come and get me and Bryce. They put Bryce in one cell or one room and put me in another room. And they're like, hey, did you hear anything this morning? I said, nah, listen, I've been out in the yard. I don't know anything. They're like, well, you didn't hear anything? You know, I keep repeating my answer. I said, listen, I don't know anything. Well, you got to be back here for 5 minutes anyway. So just let us tell you what's going on. See, you didn't hear anything this morning? You didn't hear anybody screaming this morning? No, and I kept saying no, 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 until my time was up and they returned me to my cell. Well, at this time, you know, the staff member that was interviewing me didn't really give up a lot of information. They were just asking if I heard any sound this morning, if I knew of any incident. And in all honesty, I didn't hear anything. I didn't know anything. So I didn't find out about what was going on in our block until the next day when they let us out. And then people started talking about why we were locked down. Well, when they called us back the day before at 9 o'clock to lock us down, every hour in the unit, a CO does his rounds. That means he gets out of his office and goes and walks by every single cell, looks in every single cell. So on this particular morning, when he was doing his round, he was looking in each individual cell. When he looked into Roark's cell, Roark and Bishop's cell, he seen that Bishop is laid up in the bed with a blanket over him. Well, the first round, he didn't pay any mind because there's some people that do sleep in, which is against the rules in there. especially if you're white, Mexican, or one of us. We don't do no sleeping in unless you have a graveyard shift where you're working all night, that your people make that an exception. But the Sureños, when they get up, they roll up their bed. Roll it up, tie it up with their blanket and their pillow on top of it, so they can't lay down. That's their policy. I don't have to roll up my bed, but I'm not sleeping in my bed. And anybody that's active in the penitentiary, they're not sleeping, they're not taking naps during the day. But also, Bishop's supposed to be at work. He works at the corridor. I don't know exactly what he does. So the second time the CO came, did his round, he still see dude, Bishop, this white boy, in bed. But now he knows this guy's supposed to be at work. So he went in the cell to go wake Bishop up. And when he pulled the blanket off of him, he seen the Bishop's head was all smashed up. Looked like the Elephant Man. He's swollen and fucked up. That's when the deuces hit. Well, what had happened was that, like I told you just a little bit ago, that there was rumors that Bishop was working with the staff, was working with the SIS, feed them information about what's going on in the compound, who's got the dope, who's got this, who's got that. Like I said, I don't know the intimate details of that, but that was the rumor. So him being Roark's cellie, Roark took it upon himself to deal with the situation. So 5 o'clock that morning, Roark, I think I mentioned this earlier in some of my episodes, like people that's been locked down a long time, has done a lot of time, has been in cells with other men, 23 and 1, 24-hour lockdown, they always want the top bunk. Because on the top bunk, it's harder for somebody to come and get you. If you're sleeping on a top bunk and your cellie wants to bring you a move, he's got to climb up to the top bunk, which that split second of him trying to climb up to get to you might be enough time to save your life. Now, if you're on the bottom bunk, you're going to be used to your cellie jumping off the top bunk to use the toilet, to use the sink, or whatever throughout the course of the night. So your natural instinct might not be, be on high alert, because that's a normal routine, that's a normal sound that you're accustomed to. But on the bottom bunk, if your cellie wants to bring you a move, you're almost defenseless, because you're only about 1.5 feet off the ground, while the guy that's trying to get you is towering over you. As opposed to being on the top bunk, they got to climb up to get to you. Well, Roark climbs down off the top bunk about 5 o'clock in the morning. I don't know if he punched Bishop first to knock him out or how he did it. But at the end of the day, they said Bishop was on the floor because the neighbors heard it. They heard a thump sound, like a stomping sound. Roark, he's got size 15, size 17 shoes, big ass boots, steel-toed boots. And he stomped on this dude's head, I don't know how many times. But they said that when the COs found him, that they couldn't recognize this dude. His face was just all out of shape. So that's when they hit the deuces. They didn't come running over there because it wasn't an ongoing incident. They just found a body in a cell. They took him back to the infirmary, life flight him out to a hospital. And my buddy Fam, he works in commissary. So he works, hand in hand with the COs, backing up our commissary every day. And the CO told him that Bishop's brain dead. That's how Roark is in ADX right now for that incident. He stomped out a dude with his size 15, size 17 steel-toe boots to death. At the time that we were there, the warden was his name Matavosin. He was trying to get a pardon for Bishop to return him to his family. And now, this is a little bit off topic, but he wasn't doing that because he wanted Bishop to spend the last days of his life with his family, because the dude's in a coma. He's brain dead. By all likelihood, he's already dead, and they're just keeping him alive through the tubes and stuff. But Matevosyan filed to get him pardoned because the feds didn't want to pay for the money that it's cost to keep that dude alive. That's the reality of USP. Welcome to the USP.